relieved, happy, excited, thrilled. Just everybody was wondering how, in what direction it would go, you know. And my whole family, very excited, very happy. You know, we just, yeah, it's been a big transition. You know, I did 21 years. Actually, I heard somebody say I did 19. No, I did 21 years. And it's been a big transition. You know, I've learned a lot from this whole experience. But one of the things I think that we need to focus on, most importantly, is the families of the victims. You know, it's real easy to get mixed up in all the legalities of the case and you know, but they're just in limbo, waiting, hoping, wondering if justice will ever get served for their family, you know, their relative. And if it was my daughter or my son or my mom and dad, and I would definitely want to know what really happened. Not what you want me to believe happened, but what really happened, you know. And thank God my lawyers have been very vigilant, very, very relentless in fighting this case and gathering the facts, investigating in depth, you know, more, not just on the surface, but they went deeper. And that's what we needed. We needed somebody to really delve into the case, you know. And my lawyers, Dennis Obregon and Lisa Greenberg and Mike Ware, and they've gone, I mean, above and beyond. You know what I mean? That's so rare nowadays when you have a lawyer that actually takes a personal interest in you, because there's hundreds of clients, hundreds of defendants, you know. But for a lawyer to actually say, you know what, I'm going to take time to really invest in your case and see what's really going on. Just hear what you're talking about, and maybe so. Maybe that's what you're saying is what happened. Let me check. So they start doing the math, their own investigations and stuff, and the truth started to come out. And I was happy. I said, yes, come on, let's go. You know, I feel very tired. Not so much stressed anymore. I've already gotten over that. My levels of stress have gone down. You know what I mean? I almost got the death penalty. You know, and they've already executed the guy that was supposed to be my co-defendant. You know, my dad said yesterday, matter of fact, he says, that could have been you. And then what? And look at all this is coming out now. That could have been you. You would have been gone. So yeah, that's how I feel.
When we talked last, I think in the jail, we talked about the fact that you were offered, I believe you were offered a plea.
Several pleas.
But you have steadfastly maintained your innocence throughout this process. If you had been offered a plea, how much time would you have served?
Well, they offered me first, it was 50 years. Then they came, when I said, no, I'm not. 50 years for what? They said, well, you're going to sign for 50 years. Just admit that you did it, sign here, and you go off to prison, you get 50 years. You won't face a death penalty. And I said, no, I'm not going to sign for no 50 years. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay, 25. 25 and you win. I said, no, you'd rather face a death penalty? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to face a death penalty, but I'm not going to go 25 years in prison. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't even know these people, you know? And you would think 25 years, I'd be out discharged, completely done in what, 2 more years, right? I'd be done. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to admit to something that I didn't do. You know what I mean? I didn't think it was right, but I understood in their part, they're like, hey, look, you can sign the deal. Conviction. I get it, you know, but I felt like they were playing with my life, and I didn't. Well, we're not, the thing about us U.S. citizens is we were raised in a system that celebrates birthdays, you know. We're not suicide bombers. We don't, no. So nobody wants to die, you know. So even when you realize that, hey, these people are serious. They're going to kill you. This is real. You know, well, of course, at that point, what do you want to do? You want to save yourself, right? Anybody. And so, but even then, when I wanted to save myself, I couldn't. Because my lawyer, Tinker, talked to me at the time, and Douglas Tinker, and he says, Joe David, if you didn't do it, you're not gonna admit that you did it. You know what I mean? He goes, I understand. You don't want to face the death penalty. That's nobody. But I just felt that, no, I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to accept that as a plea deal. I wasn't going to accept anything as a plea deal. I didn't want a plea deal. You know, I wasn't worried when I got arrested. I said, I'm not worried. I said, hey, I'm good. You know, so whatever mix up they have or whatever, try to get a deal or whatever, I wasn't there, bro. So hey, I'm good. I was in jail and I wasn't stressing because, and they asked me, they said, you want to go to trial? Or you want to take this plea deal? You go to trial, man, you might get the death penalty. And I said, no, I'm not going to get the death penalty. I'm not going to, you're not going to convict me for killing these people, you know, because I don't even know these people. You know what I mean? And when I started to see these people take the stand and I knew they were lying, I'm like, and you want to outburst because your life is on the line, right? And so you're sitting there and you know that these people that are lying on you, if the jury believes them, you're gone. There's no car, no knife, no guns, no fingerprints, fiber, fluid, nothing. But you're going to send me to death row because he said he's got 5 felonies. I would probably say that too. It's either that or you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. What would you do? At this point, a lot of people have asked me because the guy that accused us, Tony Ortiz, he's out here, you know, and they've asked me, they said, if you were to see him, Target, Walmart, how would you feel? And I said, I wouldn't feel anything. You know what I mean? A side of me before, I wanted to talk to him, right? One-on-one. And just be like, what happened, man? Why are you doing this? You don't even know me, bro. What's up? Okay, you already got your deal. You didn't go to prison for a long time like you were supposed to. Come on now. Tell the truth. What's up? Tell them what really happened, right? But I don't know. I'm not mad at him because if I was in his position, I probably would have done the same thing. When your life is on the line, you know, the whole dynamic changes. He was looking at he'd probably get out of prison when he was like 50 something years old. By then it wouldn't even matter anymore, right? So I get it. It was either me or you, right? And who better to throw under the bus than me? And I get it. Your life was on the line. You know what I mean? I can't fault you because it could have been anybody, and you threaten them with their life. They're going to say what they got to say because you want to live. You don't want to go to prison. You don't want to die, you know?
Let me ask you, in 2023, when we did the first interview with you, James Sales, the original prosecutor in the case, said that he still believes you were guilty.
Sure.
What is your response to that?
I think at this point, he's got a save face. You know, you've got these attorneys that have come, not from here, they've come from big cities. And they didn't come over here to make friends with anybody that was corrupted. They said, you know what? And I've always called my lawyers the Avengers. You know what I mean? Because it reminds me of people that you don't really think exist anymore. You know what I mean? Every now and then you'll see a documentary where this lawyer, but it's a rarity, so it's a big deal. You know what I mean? Dennis Obregon, she took a personal interest in my case. She believed in me, which is very rare. You need to understand that. It's very, very rare because lawyers have so many clients and they hear so many stories and they got bills to pay just like everybody else, and the show must go on, you know. And I feel that they did an awesome job. You know, she believed, she took a personal interest in me, in my case. Without her, I would not even be here right now. You know, but she believed in me, and we've been through all the motions and the feelings and everything and about the case, and it's just real intense, you know. You're in prison, you're seeing your life go by years and years and years, and it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot.
By the time Danis got involved,
Mm-hmm.
how many years had lapsed where effort after effort just had not resulted in anything?
Right. Well, we had hired Bill May as an attorney, and once we paid him like $30,000, he had a heart attack. Like the next week, kept all my transcripts, kept everything. So my dad says, "Mijo, Bill May had a heart attack. He died." I'm like, "Well, you just gave him $30,000. Like, what do you mean he passed away?" Right? Because it's that type of feeling. You know, you're not considerate to nothing. You're in prison for the rest of your life. You know, so understanding is very complicated at that point. You know. So, I'm sorry, I got derailed.
So that was a setback. If you could say anything to Danis and to Lisa and to Mike, especially Danis,
Right.
how important was that personal involvement for you?
Oh man, that's, like I said, it's such a rarity, you know, for an attorney. Well, I thought it was until I met Lisa, and I've seen Tinker, and I've seen Jimmy Granberry, and I've seen, mind you, Jimmy was my lawyer, my trial lawyer. And to see them doing what they're doing, you don't really understand it. You're like, why me? Why are you believing in me? You know, and my mom was like, she's like, well, they're doing it because they see something that everybody else didn't. And it grabbed their attention. And so now they're going in, you know, and I'm very, it's like this. Without Danis, none of this would have been possible. You know, we got Mike Ware, she got Mike Ware on board, you know, Lisa, you know, awesome people, very, very devoted, dedicated attorneys. And you don't really see that no more. You don't, you know, I'm very grateful, very, very thankful for everything they've done. I don't really understand everything yet, but just very grateful, you know, and it's hard because what do you tell somebody that saved your life? Thank you. Oh, thank you. Talk to you later. Right? Yeah, see you around. That's your life. And to them, that's what they do, you know? But what motivates you to do that? You're investing all your time and resources into proving that somebody's innocent or whatever the fact. And I think that takes a lot of patience, a lot of dedication, a lot of time. And they're doing it. They've been doing it. And it makes me wonder what pushes you, what motivates you to do this, you know? Even saying grateful, even saying thank you, it doesn't seem like enough, you know what I mean? Because it's your life, not their life, it's your life. And when I seen Danis, I came out and I seen Danis and I'm like, you want me to cut your yard or something? Is there anything I can do? Can I be your slave for 2 weeks? You know what I mean? And she laughs, but I don't laugh because that was my life. You know what I mean? So nobody can understand the intensity unless it's through you. And even then, you can tell somebody and they're like, oh, I can just imagine. No, you can't. No, you can't. You know what I mean? It's that deep. It's that deep, you know? Yeah, so that's how I feel.
Last question, and then I'm going to put Danis in the hot seat. What's next for you?
Oh, wow. Well, we're in the process of right now. Scratch that. I didn't like that. It didn't sound right. Right now, we're in the process of, through Church Unlimited, re-entering the McConnell unit where I was at because I was in prison there. And they have a huge, like a cinema type screen in the gym. And Church Unlimited, every Sunday, they host live broadcasts from their church. Well, I go to their church now. I go to their main campus. And so the plan now is to go back to McConnell and share my testimony. You know, I know everybody. I know all the officers, the warden. I know everybody. And it's right here in Beeville, so everybody's very well aware of everything that's been going on because they see the news, you know. And also for the juvenile, I want to mentor them, all the troubled youth. You know, we have a big crime problem here with the youth today, man. Very, very, very different, you know. Got a lot of young kids running around with guns, no purpose, just for crazy things. It makes you wonder, like, man, y'all, there's no direction. There's no guidance no more. It's just a bunch of kids with guns running around wild, you know. And I think that they need someone like me to talk to them because they won't listen to just anybody. And we need to understand that. You know what I mean? You can try to talk to them and be like, you know, but when they know somebody, and I've always said that they don't know me no more. They know the old me. You know, a lot has changed since then. You know, I'm a paralegal now. I study my own case. I did PowerPoints. When your life's on the line, you do incredible things, you know. And I walked into a law library and it's crazy. Without a professor. Usually people go to law school, they have a professor, and I didn't have a professor. And I walk in the law library and I just see hundreds and hundreds of books. And I'm like, wow, where do I start? You know, where's the professor when you need him, you know? So I'm very grateful, Rachel, very grateful, very thankful. And it doesn't feel right saying that because thank you, it doesn't seem like enough. You know what I mean? I brought her flowers and we brought it. And even then, it's like not enough. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. My mom brought her flowers. And because what do? How do you thank somebody that saved your life? Or then continues in the struggle, continues in the challenge to fight for your innocence because they believe in you, because they know what happened. And there they are, you know, fighting, fleshing it out, you know, and you just sit back and you're like, wow, 21 years later, this is a different world, you know, this is crazy, you know. But I'm glad that it finally happened. I'm glad that it finally came to light, you know. There was a time when I asked Dennis, I said, can we get the FBI involved? How about that? Why don't we get the FBI involved? Go to the CIA. Go to somebody big, right? And Dennis was like, well, I mean, you never know. You can. And people would question me and ask me like, you want to do that? I said, yes. Yes, I want to get the FBI involved. You're goddamn right. Why wouldn't you want to get the FBI involved? Isn't that what they're for? For cases like this? For things that are not supposed to be happening? You know what I mean?
Well, I think they did pretty well without the FBI.
Oh, yes, I agree. But there was a time when Dennis was in the struggle and researching and what? It's a lot.
I want to hear about that.
Yes.
Dennis. In fact, I'm going to grab you now, if that's okay.
Well, initially, I thought I was just doing a quick review of his case and finishing some work that another lawyer did. But I read through that work, I read through the record, and of course I had a lot of communication with Joe David, and it quickly became apparent that there was much more to it. And so it basically just goes back to, this is why we do the work we do. We're interested in the truth, in the whole story, in the humanity behind any accusation. And the deeper I got into it, I really felt like there was a lot missing from what was told at the trial. And Joe David was the expert in his own case, so he gave me the stops to go to look further, and that's what I did. I did legal research, but I also had to dig in on the factual issues that he felt were not explored appropriately at the trial. And it was just a constant quest for the truth.
You heard Joe David say he doesn't know how to thank you, and thank you doesn't feel enough. What would your response be to that?
I always tell him that his living his life as a free person is the thanks that I need. I'm thrilled for him, and that it finally worked, you know, and that's all I want.
In the beginning, as you were representing Joe David, kind of in the process of all of this, you became the chief public defender for Nueces County, so you were not able to continue in the case. Talk to me about that difficult decision, because I'm sure you had that conversation in your brain about, what do I do?
That's right. That was, it ended well. But when I decided to take the job, Joe David and I were at the point where we had filed the initial application for a writ of habeas corpus, but we had not had the evidentiary hearing. So I was going to have to withdraw and hand it off to someone else. And it's, it's hard. It's your baby and you're handing it to somebody else. So I had the idea of reaching out to the Innocence Project, and was lucky enough to have had a conversation with Jessie Freud from the Innocence Project of Texas about 6 months before. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, do you think you guys could review this application I wrote? And I'd say probably within 48 hours, I had Mike Ware on the phone, and he agreed to take it on. So at that point, I felt tremendous relief, because I knew it was in great hands, and they knew what they were doing, and they were able to take what I did and expand on it even more. And as Mike says, I set the ball and they spiked it.
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Joe David. What was your emotional reaction when you learned the news yesterday?
Very similar to him. I was very relieved, thrilled, of course, just a real sense of gratitude and calm after that.
I would assume, and assumptions are bad, but I would assume that you carry around a weight when you know that things have maybe not happened the way they were supposed to, and you may be one of the only people who can fix it. How did you feel that way in this case, and what does it feel like now?
Absolutely. I think we as criminal defense lawyers feel that all day, every day. There's a lot of pressure when you believe there's an injustice, but all you can do is the work. And that's what I would tell Joe David. I have to do the work. I have to dig in and see if I can find something. And when it's a factual issue, you have to dig in and see if there's, contradicting evidence. So the weight is alleviated by doing the work, by trying and not giving up. And it's hard because we, as criminal defense lawyers, we lose a lot. We're supposed to lose. If the system works the way that it's intended to, and everything goes correctly, the investigation is done right, and they find the right people and plenty of evidence, then all we're talking about is what is the appropriate outcome at that point. But the reality is the system is made up of humans, and there are inevitably going to be things that get missed. So checking that, is a big responsibility, but that's why we do it. We want to check it, we want to pursue the truth, make sure that things were done properly, or if not, that we shine a light on that. And I think that's the only way to alleviate that pressure, is to work.
I think it was, for me, sort of finally. We have these moments as criminal defense lawyers that we have to hold on to, and we start to lose faith. We see so many injustices that are not corrected, or it's okay if this injustice happens because this person doesn't matter. That's how we start to feel, that injustices don't matter. And when you get a moment like this, it's gratitude and relief, and thank goodness, like finally finally somebody heard us. Somebody heard Joe David. So for me, it's relief, but it's a moment I have to hold on to so I can keep going. It gives me hope to keep going.
You heard Joe David talk, and you heard Joe David talk about his reaction and what he's planning to do with the next parts of his life. At no point did I hear Joe David say he's angry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand that, right? Kind of explain that to me, and I probably should have asked him as well, but does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me. Joe David is remarkable. You know, when you sit imprisoned for 21 years, you can be hateful, you can be angry, you can give up, or you can hold on to hope and use your experience to help others. And I find him remarkable that he's willing to do that, that his voice can help other people. Instead of being a voice of anger, he's going to use it for hope and to help other people. And maybe something beautiful can come out of a horrible tragedy.
Let me get into some of the legal parts of this. So in the dissenting opinion, it was noted that this was not a claim of actual innocence. So kind of explain to me why it is not an actual innocence claim and what that really means and what could happen, right? So Hidalgo County could choose to prosecute. So kind of break that down for us.
I think the best way to say it is that the Court of Criminal Appeals overturned the conviction based on eyewitness testimony that was later refuted. And so they chose to overturn his conviction that way. It might have been, obviously they wanted to overturn his conviction, and obviously we're grateful. We're grateful to Judge Klein, who actually gave him that opportunity by recommending he get a new trial. I can't speak to why they didn't want to talk about the actual innocence, but what I can say is that there still is hope that Hidalgo County can dismiss the charges based on actual innocence. So not all hope is lost, but we are grateful for this day, for the conviction to have been overturned.
And explain to me why Hidalgo County has taken the case.
So when Joe David had his original trial, he was represented by Doug Tinker and also Jimmy Granberry. And Jimmy Granberry, in the interim of this 21 plus years, became the DA of Nueces County. And so due to that conflict, he cannot handle the case. And so when that happens, the case is handed over to a neighboring county. And so that's how the Edinburgh District Attorney got the case.
So what is the timeline for them to make a decision? I mean, are we going to be in limbo for 6 months, a year? I know that there's a 10-day deadline with the court, but I don't understand what that is.
So I think we'll be back in court very soon, and I think the judge will now have this case and call both the defense and the Edinburgh District Attorney to court to see what will happen. I think that we'll have an answer relatively soon.
Let me ask you a similar question to the one that I asked Joe David. In 2023, the district attorney who originally prosecuted the case said he still believes Joe David is guilty, right? What would be your response from the perspective as an attorney who is, you have canons that you have to uphold and rules, what would be your response to that attorney?
I believe in the system. I believe in the way it was set up, and I believe that we're innocent until proven guilty. I don't think we plead guilty every single day because they're scared, just like he was, for his life. It doesn't necessarily mean they're guilty. There are so many flaws in the criminal justice system, and we hope that things are done properly and ethically so that a jury can come to the right decision. But we know, the people who practice every single day know that that's not the case. And so all I can say is that I hope that we learn something from Joe David's case, and it makes me so sad that he had to spend 21 years imprisoned for us to listen to him, for people to realize this happens every day. But I'm hopeful that his situation brings light to the problems in the system, and that we don't, that we learn the lessons of being ethical in the courtroom and pursuing justice. That's my hope.
Perfect.
Rachel, so can you ask that question again? Usually the first 30 seconds if you remember.
Oh, no. He had to switch out.
Oh, okay. I don't even know what I said.
You probably got enough in the after
I got
the.
the
It was
tail end.
great.
But just ask
I don't-
again, see if
Well, again, it was in response to what you would say to the previous or the previous prosecutor who said that Joe David, he believes is still guilty. And it began with, we don't put our thumb on the scale, right? We
And you
are
believe in the
supposed to
system.
pursue justice.
I'm somebody who grew up believing in the system. I wouldn't be a lawyer if I didn't. I think it's important that we not put our thumb on the scale. We don't manipulate evidence or threaten witnesses to get the result we want. It is our job to pursue justice. I still believe that justice can happen in the courtroom, and I'd like to believe that situations like Joe David's can shed light on what really happens, and that we can pursue justice ethically. And it's not about winning, it's about justice. It's about doing it the right way. And so I'm just hopeful that his situation shows us what really happens and helps us to fix it so we can have a justice system we believe in. That's my hope.